Hi, welcome to the BMW i3. So if you're new to electric cars or contemplating making the move over to electric, hopefully this video will help shed some light into some of the things you need to take into consideration. Some things you may just want to factor into your purchase, or just a little bit of knowledge as regards to how to go about buying an electric car and things that I've kind of learned over the last 3 years of having electric as my daily drive. So BMW i3, BMW's first kind of mainstream electric vehicle. This particular model is what they call the Rex. It was discontinued when BMW went from the smaller battery, which had about 80 miles in the real world, to their later model, which has got about an additional 100 miles. The range extender has a little 650cc motorcycle engine, which I believe is off of their C600 or something, I think, model. It's basically a generator, so the car isn't a hybrid. Okay, this is not a hybrid model. This is a little 650cc motorbike engine that sits in the back, on the back axles, and it basically acts as a generator to charge the batteries as you go. Now, that overcomes this thing called range anxiety. And when I first had my first electric car that I use as my daily drive, it was a Nissan Leaf. It had about 130 miles they claimed would be the electric range. Real world, in the summer 120, in the winter nearer 70. So it's one big factor you need to take in consideration when you buy an electric car, or when you're running an electric car, is the fact that everything consumes electric. Windscreen wipers, charging your phone, heaters, air conditioning, stereo, everything that you're going to turn on, any kind of ancillary device you're going to switch on in the car is going to consume electricity, which is going to reduce your range, your overall range. Now, manufacturers really need to aim for this 300 range. It seems to be this kind of psychological thing in your head that 300 is pretty much, you very rarely would you do 300 miles in a day, unless you're going to go to a business meeting which happens to be the other end of the country, or you're going to see some relatives or whatever. Very rarely are you going to do 300 miles in a day. So some of the early Zoes, I think real life, were doing about 50 or 60 miles. It's not really enough. And then you've kind of introduced to the hybrid models, such as the the BMW 330e, for example, Porsche's Cayenne or Macan, which gave you about 28 miles or so of electric range on top of what you'd have on your normal combustion engine. So for a commute, 28 miles in a day, probably doable. Get you to and from work, and then if you get out of trouble, you run out of battery, the electric engine, or the normal internal combustion engine would kick in, and then it will get you to your destination. So they're things you really need to consider as regards to what are you going to do from your daily mileage. Another thing when buying an electric car is I can pretty much guarantee you, whatever you put down as your mileage, if you're doing a PCP type contract, is that you will do more than the mileage that you stipulated on your contract. My wife's car barely moves off the driveway at weekends because we use this. It's it's basically free motoring, or free mileage. We've also got solar panels on the roof of the house, and I'll talk about that separately, but we've got solar panels on the roof of the house. We're not big eco warriors. I've got a 911 in the garage, which is my toy. So we're not real eco warriors, but the fact is, when I plug this in and the sun is belting down on the solar panels, my meter barely moves, which is the most satisfying feeling. I get back in the car, it's fully charged. It's cost me absolute pennies, if little amount of money at all to run. And when I top this up, I get roughly about 80 miles in the summer, and I get, because it's the Rex, the range extender, I get about another between 60 and 80 miles of fuel from the little petrol tank that it holds as part of the generation of electricity that allows you to go a little bit further. Not something you'd really want to use to go to a journey all the way to Scotland. It's not designed for It's not designed for a long journey to use the range extender, but it will give you extended range. As long as you keep to about 60 miles an hour and don't really go over 60, it will give you extended range. So this is my second. I've got a Tesla Model 3 on order, which I've had on order for some time now. Looking forward to that coming. I will be ordering, when I place my specification, ordering the performance model. Obviously Tesla came out with a car releasing it at about 35,000. By the time you've spec'd it up and gone for the performance model, which is obviously dual motor, 4-wheel drive, it works out about 57, with the addition of things like autopilot and things like that. But different kind of money to this. You know, you can pick an early i3 up for, at the moment, 2020 we are now, you can pick them up for about 13,000, I believe. Nissan Leaf, I think you can get now for about 6,000 or 7,000. Same with the Zoes. You know, there is a cheap market out there if you're wanting to dip your toe in and make that first step into electric cars. I did my first Leaf on a PCP. It was phenomenal. I think I put it down about 9,000 miles over 2 years. I put it down about 500 quid, and it was about 200 and something a month. Now at the time I was working in London, and so this is a really good fact. If you are a commuter into London, at the moment, Milton Keynes especially, but many of the train stations are allowing green cars to park for free. Milton Keynes, again, 2019, 2020, £11 or so a day to park in the multi-storey car park. Electric cars with a green permit, absolutely free. 20 days a month going into London, £11 a day, makes it a free car. It's a free car in parking alone. So you know, that is a real compelling reason to make the move into electric cars, if you're just going to use it for your you know, your train skate just to get to the train station and back. But if you are looking to move into electric cars to replace your fossil fuel car, at the moment I would highly advise that you first of all look at your mileage, how many miles you would need to do as an average on a daily basis. And if you are really looking to make the move of 30, 40, 50,000 pounds, you know, you cannot beat at the moment the Tesla Model 3. Model S's, which was Tesla's first real mainstream electric car, they've come down in value tremendously now, but you're still looking at kind of 50,000 to 100,000 for the Model S, and the gull wing doors or falcon wing doors, I think they start at about 90 up to about 150 for the P100D. But you know, that they are supercar, if not a hypercar for performance. I took out a Tesla Model S P100D with Ludicrous on it about a year or so ago. 0 to 60 just over 2 seconds, and it hurt. You know, I have to say, doing the acceleration from standstill flat out to 60, 2 or 3 goes, it really hurt your internal organs. It was just an incredible feeling, something you'd only really experience from driving something, you know, such as a Porsche 918 or a Ferrari LaFerrari, or you know, even a Bugatti Veyron or a Chiron. Just that kind of performance. 0 to 60, 2.4 seconds, just phenomenal. This doesn't have an acceleration such as that. I think BMW claimed this at about 8 seconds. It's certainly quicker than that, and I think the Leaf Nissan claimed was about 10.6 seconds. Again, it was so much quicker than that. But you know, they're not performance cars, but they have got a performance that will certainly absolutely surprise you the first time you're driving an electric car. They also have a silence to them that you would only really experience in something like a Rolls-Royce. They're starting to free up the COVID-19 now, and travel the roads a little bit busier than they've been in a while. I've not put any content together for this very reason, but as things have started to relax a little bit more, I felt it was time for me to come out and do some more video footage, and then start the process of editing, which is quite challenging. But the idea of this is obviously to share my knowledge and experiences with you, just in case you are in the market to start looking for a car. So my recommendation, the i3 is fantastic. The Nissan Leaf is actually a better car to drive. I know it sounds a bit crazy, I'm saying a Nissan is better to drive than BMW, but the Nissan is actually a nicer ride. The BMW has a bit of an unusual ride to it. whether it's to do with the carbon tub and the stiffness of the chassis, whether it's to do with the way that BMW have set it up, I don't know, but it feels like you're driving an old agricultural four-wheel drive vehicle where every axle is kind of fighting for grip. This is obviously rear-wheel drive, but it's a bit strange. It makes my children feel sick, if I'm to be honest. So if you are thinking of taking out a BMW, go and get to your dealership and ask me if you can have one for a couple of days, and go and do a bit of a long journey. Put the kiddies in the back and see what they think of it, because it's a bit of a strange ride sensation to the car. I've got a nice Ferrari approaching here. 360 Spider is just on its way past. Beautiful, followed by a Caterham 7C. On the weather, sun shining, and the COVID relaxing of the movements is getting people out in their toys. So charging, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about charging, and I'm going to put some footage together of the different chargers. But there are Type 1, Type 2s. Type 2 is what kind of Tesla, Audi, BMW, Mercedes, VW. It seems to be the most kind of European de facto charger is Type 2, whereas Nissan and Mitsubishi, all the kind of Asian manufacturers, go with the Type 1 charging. Well, I'm going to put some photographs over here so you can see the difference. When I bought this car, part of the buying criteria, as I said, was the sunroof, which was a must for me, and these wheels. I wasn't too worried about the professional pack where you get a bigger screen for the sat nav, but one thing I definitely wanted was the rapid charge, and that's called CCS. And you've got the normal CCS charger, which is kind of like Tesla, and you've got a little bit underneath, which I'm going to overlay some photographs here, and that gives you a rapid charge. That makes a massive difference if you're pulling up at a service station and you just want to do a quick charge to get on your way. A quick story for you, just to share if it helps kind of put things in perspective. The first weekend we had the Nissan, it was coming up to Easter. We decided to go down to see some friends in Poole in Dorset, and the Nissan there was no way it was going to make it down in one charge. So we charged the car up at home, set off in the morning. We set off from Northamptonshire, where we live. We got down to the M4 Chivy services and topped up the car. We went in for a quick comfort break and a cup of tea. 20 minutes or so later we came out. The car was pretty much fully charged. That cost £6, I think it was, and then we made it all the way down to Poole. We had a couple of day trips out where we were down there for a few days, charged up at the hotel, and we pretty much did the same in reverse. Left our hotel in near Sandbanks, fully charged, got to Chieveley fairly late at night. Kids were asleep, my wife was fast asleep. I sat there for 25 minutes, half an hour, just catching up on some emails and doing some bits and pieces. Car was fully charged, got on the A34, got all the way home. And that entire journey, I think we did 340 miles, cost me just short of about £14. Just amazing. If we were taking a 911, that would have cost me, probably £100 in fuel. So a story just to give an illustration of the cost savings of driving an electric car. Obviously you have to plan. We had to plan that journey about where we were going to charge, but it made a tremendous difference to the cost of the journey. Added a little bit of time, but we would have done a comfort break anyway and probably stopped in for a cup of tea or a McDonald's or something like that. So that worked out really, really well. I really hope that this footage and this real world feedback from ownership has helped you and will help you in your buying decision when you're looking to make that move. If you are thinking of, or you have already made that move into electric cars and you're looking to replace it, please subscribe. I really want to try and put more content out there to help you guys with some valuable information, which I really hope has been of use. So please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it's been of use, and please take care as we come out of this COVID-19. Take care of yourselves, keep well, take care of your family, and yes, I look forward to the next video footage for you. Take care.